Hi, I'm Graham Steele, CEO and founder of Cryptosense, and today I'm going to talk about rogue certificates in the Kaseya VSA attack. So, unless you've had your head in a bucket of sand for the last few days, you'll know that on the 2nd of July 2021, a very large new ransomware attack started, and it leveraged the Kaseya VSA software. So this piece of software is a tool for endpoint management and monitoring. So that makes it a really interesting target for a supply chain attack for ransomware, because this software puts a bunch of agents on all the endpoints that it monitors, and those endpoints now can be managed remotely. The agents have the legitimate ability to update files for things like antivirus or patch management or whatever it is. And they need to have an exception to allow them to do that, to allow them to do their job. So that makes it a really juicy target for something like ransomware, because by attacking that software, I can then really easily deploy my ransomware on all of those endpoints. Now, once you've got hold of that agent, that isn't actually the end of the story. To really deploy nasty ransomware on there, the attackers still had to get past a number of protections. And it's interesting to see the role of a rogue certificate in doing that. So once an endpoint has become attacked, the next thing that happens in this attack is that the endpoint agent, the Kaseya VSA agent, writes a file into its working directory, something it's allowed to do. There's no malware rule that's going to stop that, because it has to do that as part of its legitimate work. It then runs a bunch of PowerShell commands to turn off a load of standard features of the anti-malware stuff that you get in Windows these days. It then flips that file into an executable and goes ahead and runs it. So to run an executable, even with all these anti-malware protections turned off, you still need to have a legitimate signature on that binary that's come from a certificate that is itself signed, and then it goes all the way back up the chain of signatures to a trusted root CA. Otherwise the binary won't go ahead and execute. And in this particular case, the binary did indeed have a legitimate signature from a legitimate certificate. So the question is, how did the ransomware attackers manage to do that? Well, to find out, we can first look at the certificate they used. So the certificate they used is registered to a company called PB03 Transport Limited. So we can track down this company. This is there is a legitimate company with that name that is based in Ontario, Canada, registered to a Mr. Maninder Singh. PB03 is, in fact, the first digits you would have on your number plate if you had a vehicle registered in a certain area of the Punjab, and the purpose of the company is registered as transport with only one shareholder, and so it seems very likely that this company is a holding company for this guy to drive a taxi or drive an Uber or something like that. Doesn't really look like a software company. And if we look at the registered address on Google Street View, we can see it's a slightly snowy residential area in Ontario, so that sort of checks out. So how was it that this company was used to get hold of this certificate? So if we look at the date on the binary that was signed, it was compiled the 1st of July, so just the day before the attack started. So clearly the attackers had their hands on the private key that corresponds to this certificate at that point. The certificate itself was obtained on the 29th of April 2021. And the company has been in existence since 2019, so clearly some kind of fraud has gone on here. How exactly did the attackers do that part? Well, that we don't know in detail, but there was a very interesting talk about how to get a forged certificate at RSA in 2020. So a guy called David Myman, who's an associate professor at Georgia State University, did an empirical study where he essentially went on various darknet forums and asked if he could get hold of SSL certificates, in particular EV, so extended validation SSL certificates. So an SSL certificate is not the same as a code signing certificate. It's easier to get one. You normally only have to show that you can control that domain. But to get an extended validation SSL certificate requires that the CA does some verification that you really are the person you're supposed to be, or your company really is a legitimate company, and you're supposed to check out certain things about that. And that procedure corresponds very closely to the procedure that is at least supposed to happen when a CA signs a code signing certificate. So what David Myman did, which was quite interesting, was that when he found somebody on the darknet willing to provide him with one of these forged certificates, he asked to pay only in installments when he could see evidence of each stage of the process happening. So to get these installments, the attackers who were going to get hold of these forged certificates had to show him what they did. And so if you go look at his slides, so we'll put a link to that in the description of this video, you can actually see the forged documents from new illegitimate companies that have been set up that look completely legal and real but are under the control of the attackers. He managed to do it in the UK. They registered to random residential addresses, and then the attacker manages to show that he's in control of these things in order to get the money from David Myman, and then eventually he uses that to obtain the SSL certificate. And so, of course, we don't know exactly what happened here because this company has existed since 2019. So the attackers must have forged documents to make it look like they were the people who actually controlled that company in order to go ahead and do it or something like that. But it seems like a very similar methodology. So it confirms what we've known about for some time, which is that in these kind of sophisticated cyber attacks, it's now pretty easy to outsource all the elements you need to put together a sophisticated attack. You can get hold of your zero-day, you can get hold of your command and control botnet, you can get cache-out mules, and you can also get hold of your rogue certificate that you might need to be part of your kill chain in that way. So, conclusion, your code signing verification is only as strong as your certificate hygiene, and it really pays to keep a strong hold on scanning things to make sure they haven't got certificates in places that you wouldn't expect to see certificates. So we've got some very powerful tools for that here at Cryptosense. Again, you can see that in the description under the video. And you might want to think about, in certain domains, it may be the case that your code that you're expecting to run is only ever signed by certain CAs, by certain certificates that go up through a certain CA chain. So you don't need to have all those other CA certificates in your certificate stores, since you know you're not expecting to get any code from there. So rather than take the risk, you might want to clean up those certificate store. And again, that's something else that we can help you with tools here at Cryptosense. So find out more about that. There's more recommendations down there. We've got other videos on certificate hygiene, certificate management, and key inventory, and everything you need to know about keeping your crypto clean. Do subscribe to the channel to stay up to date with all the latest news about new breaches and new ways that crypto is being exploited. Otherwise, I'll see you again soon here on the channel for another video.